Welcome to Trove Talk, your weekly gaming and getting to know you podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com, and joining me this week, I have none other than Christian Puente. Christian, how you doing? At PixelBrave.
Hey, I'm glad to be talking to you. I need this right now because things are actually a little tough. My car just died, and so I'm very eager to just forget that and just talk to you about just fun stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I was like, oh, that so you're just kind of stranded at the house. That's a bummer. And your car was very helpful in getting us around RTX, as I recall. So I'm sad.
Yeah, that's right.
Sad to see her go. Is it like reparable, or is it going to be like, nope, you just gotta get a new thing going?
No, yeah. I'm gonna replace the engine, and I mean, not me. I don't have that skill, but it'll take some time, but she'll be up and running.
All right.
Yeah.
So Christian, for those that don't know you, go ahead and maybe give yourself a little plug, a little rundown. Tell the fine folks who are watching on the internet or listening on the phones or whatever where you're from, what you're known for.
Well, I mean, anyone that follows you mostly would be familiar with my work in the Kind of Funny community, in that usually I'll go to conventions or events and I'll do event recaps for all the lovely people who are part of the community but can't make it to the events. That's the reason why I put them.
Yeah, the excellent little recap videos that you and I, especially at like Kind of Funny Live 2, you and I would stay up until like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, you editing away, me writing away. We were just kind of driving each other to get the work done. And you, I definitely like tapped out way earlier than you did every time. So I don't know how you did it, buddy, but good for you. And the videos definitely turned out great. If you haven't seen Christian's videos, they're phenomenal work that kind of just capture the feel and the excitement of everybody at events like RTX, like PSX, like Kind of Funny Live. I think the first one I remember seeing was like we were both there, but we didn't really meet at that one. But that was the IGN house party last year for Beyond 400 and Unlock 200. You did that, and I remember seeing the video a couple days later and seeing myself in there and being like, "Oh, that's really cool! Yay, neat!" And then we actually like met at PSX later that year, and we're definitely became much more acquainted at that point. And I was like, "Oh, you're the guy that did that video? That's awesome!" So small world, but yeah, you do some great work out there. And then what's the new project that you're kind of working on? Go ahead and tell the people about that a little bit.
Yeah, so After the Credits is like a new video series that I wanted to do because, I mean, and I even mentioned it in like the pitch for the series, is that like I can't be at every event, I can't be at every convention or meetup, and as much as I wish I could. So I just I feel bad that everybody's working on stuff. You have your Trove Talk, Alex does Alex Talk, and the B List was a thing going on too. And I was like, I need something I can do more frequently. So originally, After the Credits was supposed to be like a super micro, like we would fit on Twitter in like under 2 minutes. Like it was just going to be reviewing a movie and then giving recommendations. Like I saw Star Wars and here are 2 other space movies that I think people would dig. But then it kind of evolved into something bigger that I could spend more time with, or it's more just me recounting some of my favorite films or movies or whatever and talking about like why they mean something to me. Because I mean, really, like I think one of the biggest influence for that pivot was you. I was listening to you and Alex specifically on the road, and man, you guys just take these deep dives into different like Hamilton and music, and I was like, I feel this way about so many of my films, and I'll be driving to the corner store and just randomly start thinking about how much a certain movie reminds me of I don't know, my family or friends, and I was just like, I need to get these thoughts out of my head and like onto the camera. So it pivoted a bit and became something a lot similar to like what just something a bit more produced than originally intended.
Yeah, no, it's great. Definitely check out After the Credits. I'll certainly link to just your YouTube account in the description below. But yeah, like I'm so glad that Alex and I were I guess in a way kind of sparked that you making that jump and starting to do that, because it's been really cool stuff seeing you kind of come out and talk about stuff like Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban, and yeah, it's a lot of fun getting to see. I tweeted out yesterday, I think, like it sucks because all of my friends are creating amazing things, and I definitely don't have time to do all of them, but or to consume all of them. But when I do, I'm glad I've gotten to see some of your videos that have been coming out. So so yeah, keep up the good work, and everybody go check it out, as well as all of his kind of event videos from events past. So let's go ahead and get started with as we do in every first topic of the show. Go ahead and give me a rundown of your gaming history, Christian. What got you into gaming, and what kind of what drives you in the gaming sphere?
Well, I mean, it's so weird to talk about because it's just always been like a casual part of my life, and it didn't become more serious until I started following Beyond. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself. First, one thing I wanted to mention that is I'm super glad to be talking to you about gaming history, because as I listen to Zyger or Alex or anyone talk about their first consoles, and they're like, my mom bought me a Wii or a PS3, and I'm like, man, like I feel so old because man, my first console was a SNES, and
a SNES. That's I'm so old. Like Atari 2600.
Yeah. Okay. True. Touche. But I mean, that's kind of that was the first kickstart was having a Super Nintendo, and gifted that for one Christmas. And I kind of recently went back to my parents and asked hey, so why did I remember how I was as a kid, and I never really asked for things, let alone big things like a console. So and I'm sure I never asked for one. So why would y'all get me then? They were just I don't know. It was the thing that people wanted, things kids wanted, so we got you that. And ever since then, it was just kind of a pretty casual part of my life. It was just something to do with my brother. He's younger than me by 3 years, and my cousins. We just get together on weekends. And I mean, I think it was a pretty mainstream evolution as far as how gaming was a part of my life. It was just a pretty casual, everyone else did. They start with one console, and just every year they get the new one. So yeah, SNES followed N64, followed GameCube, and then eventually I jumped off of Nintendo into PlayStation, and that was kind of what led me to taking things more seriously. Was that everything in Nintendo, Nintendo games are fun and all, but I think PlayStation, the games are a bit more richer, because there was such an RPG factory. Mm-hmm. Wait, I think RPG Factory is actually the name of a game.
It's now the name of a company. There's RPG Maker, and then RPG Factory is the studio that did I Am Setsuna. So that it is a Square Enix studio.
I thought that sounded familiar.
That is just only exists to crank out RPGs. So yeah. Let's before we get kind of
as it was coming out of my mouth.
Before we get too far down there, so starting with SNES, what kind of games were you kind of being first exposed to? Was it just kind of standard Mario, or were you kind of playing some other tentpoles of that era?
It was basically almost exclusive Mario, just Mario, Super Mario Land, and obviously All Stars, and so I just fell back into that whole history of Mario leading up to Super Mario World. And I liked watching a lot of genres of games, but I didn't play them myself. I watched a lot of Contra and shooters, and but mostly as far as what I played for myself was just straight platformers.
Okay, awesome.
And that's what I mean by it was really casual. I was saying that's what I mean by gaming was kind of casual for me, in that it was something I enjoyed for entertainment's sake, but I didn't get sucked into it like a lot of people did. I guess because I'm more story based, and I didn't really know where to find games at the time that had an emphasis on story, because it just everything was kind of just we'll jump and save the princess or whatever.
Right.
So back then, gaming was just watching the pretty graphics kind of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. So what? So continuing on then, what just as a casual fan in your terms, what kept you, or what if you weren't in it for story in the Super Nintendo and in going into the N64 and beyond, what was it that kind of kept you into it? What you were having fun still, enough fun as a just kind of enjoying the platform?
It was the medium that brought me and all my family together. And when I say family, I mean my cousins. They were all my same age, and so it was just something that kept bringing us together every weekend. And so it was just the method in which we became social. It was what brought us together. And so that's why, even if I'm not the one playing myself, if my dad renting a game is what it takes to like everyone's coming over and us trying something new, then like that was part of what you know kept me into gaming, I guess.
Yeah, cool. So with that kind of familial experience, were you playing a lot of like group games like Mario Kart and stuff like that, or like multiplayer games, or was it just somebody would play and everybody else would kind of just be around and watch and visit and that kind of experience?
It was more like that for SNES, but obviously when N64 came out, you got 4 players and introduced so many more multiplayer things like Mario Party, Mario Kart. I mean Mario Kart, yeah, that was on SNES, but like that changed the game with like like adding more players to the challenges. So yeah, I mean I think I don't know if I
Yeah, no, definitely. That's yeah. Did you have any kind of like handheld experience through this, or were you just kind of console?
I was purely console until DSi came out, and that was like because by then, I mean, Game Boys like they look cool and all, but I just I don't know. I don't even know why I didn't get them or didn't ask for one, but it was just handhelds weren't really a part of my gaming repertoire or whatever. But The World Ends With You was coming out, and that looked really cool. And by then, I was heavy into Kingdom Hearts, and when I found out that Tetsuya Nomura, the creator of Kingdom Hearts, was taking apart into this new RPG called World Ends With You, that's what I had to get the console to play that game. And then ever since then, I fell in love with DSi, and I've just been playing RPGs on it ever since. So sometimes it takes following a creator and what they do into trying.
Nice. Yeah, I was. I just recorded last night. I was on the podcast of Joys of Games, and we were talking about we ended up talking about Final Fantasy, and I talked about how the reason I went to PlayStation was because that was where I could get Final Fantasy. Was as somebody who grew up with Final Fantasy, then 2 and 3 is like my favorites in the genre, or favorites of gaming. To find out that there was now a Final Fantasy 7 on this PlayStation device, I was immediately like, wait, there are 4 new games that I've missed. What's going on? And then the more immediate thing was like, oh well, like that's where Final Fantasy is, so I'm going to go to that. I wasn't even thinking necessarily in terms of like the developer. I knew Squaresoft, but I didn't know the names on the game necessarily. Like I probably didn't even know like Miyamoto at that time. So it was just kind of the brand loyalty that was getting me from one place to the next. I think I was still too young to start like piecing outside of like Sid Meier, Civilization, and Will Wright for The Sims. I didn't know names until probably much later. But that's cool that like you got brought into The World Ends Now, or what was the name of the game? It was one that I never actually got around to playing because I think I was late to DS. The World Ends With You.
The World Ends With You.
That's cool that like you recognize that kind of that creator had something special that really connected with you, and you wanted to kind of continue and follow and support the work. I'm sure we'll dive into it probably maybe later in your non-gaming topic, but has that kind of has that like passion for the creator and of the creation been there? But like, was that the first instance of it, or was it something that had already kind of taken root in maybe other areas, other fields of interest?
Yeah, Naughty Dog actually, with the Jak and Daxter series, they had a mechanic where you would collect these orbs, and as you collect these orbs, you unlock in the game menu different concept art and interviews. And I was like, whoa! Like, I mean, I'd always been interested in the behind the scenes of creating things since I was a kid, but that only ever been specifically for movies. That's what got me into movie making, was seeing TV shows that talked about how movies got made, and I'd never been introduced to anything that talked about how games were made. So as I was unlocking these Naughty Dog features in the Jak and Daxter games, that's kind of what probably also helped push me into games, was seeing that there's actually this whole process behind it that I could relate to, because I mean you're showing this art, and I grew up like drawing a lot, and so it's just like kind of, I mean, it didn't make me think about seriously like, oh, I want to make games, but it's kind of like the back in your head kind of thing of like, you know, like that's kind of a fun fantasy to think about drawing and it being part of making games and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that'd be. It's like, yeah, that'd be a cool thing to do. Just kind of have a hand in that.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd probably take a lot of work, so it's way easier to just like think about it than to actually get out there and like dedicate your life to it. But that's cool. Yeah, I'm a sucker for that kind of behind the scenes concept art content. And I came late to the game in Jak and Daxter. I didn't play it until like the PS3 collection, but I know some of the segments that you're talking about, having collected the precursor orbs in that, and watched the same kinds of like interview videos and looked at the drawings and stuff. So it's really cool that that you discovered that and really kind of latched onto it as kind of a connection to one of your other passions of like behind the scenes and filmmaking and whatnot. Awesome. So yeah, now we're kind of in the PlayStation ecosystem, the PlayStation world, and you're getting more, you're getting your more adult, story-driven content with things like RPGs, with Jak and Daxter to an extent. I mean, that seems like it would have been a nice little hybrid for you, because there's a story to Jak and Daxter, but also like just platforming fun.
Yeah, definitely. That probably helped bridge the gap into me realizing that there can be more to games than. And I mean, I feel bad. Like a lot of people did have these experiences way early. Like I didn't know Chrono Trigger. I mean, I had a SNES, but I never played Chrono Trigger and didn't know that all this time I could have been playing. I could have been playing games with like really deep stories and characters. But you know, sometimes game covers just are very misleading. Like in particular, the Eco has just this horrible cover art. And if it had just stuck to the original Japanese, I probably would have picked that up like a long time ago and like really gotten into that. Just as an example.
Nice, yeah. So what are some kind of other standout, like, so Kingdom Hearts obviously we'll get into in a little bit. But what, like, when did you did Kingdom Hearts just kind of right out the gate with the first one kind of like catch your eye and you dove into it, or were you already playing RPGs at that point? What was kind of your trajectory there?
Kingdom Hearts came a bit later. The first game I feel that really got me seriously into RPGs was Dragon Quest VIII.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big anime fan, and when I was seeing the images of Dragon Quest VIII in like the Game Informer, and I'm like, why does everybody here look like a Dragon Ball character? So I just started reading up more on that and finding out, oh, like Akira Toriyama, like, see, there it is again, like a creator leading me to something new. Like, well, wow, I didn't know he had this involvement in this series, so I'm going to give it a shot. And I think that was the kickoff of, like, now I love turn-based RPGs and how wide and massive they can be, and the side quests and grinding levels. And that was probably the kickoff that got me more serious about games and looking for things with stories and character development and things like that.
Nice. I've been, as somebody who's been going back through and playing Dragon Quest VII recently a lot, I've been putting a lot of hours into that on the 3DS port that they made of that. I can definitely relate to that. I remember like my early Dragon Quest experiences and really enjoying that grinding. Are you going to maybe pick up Dragon Quest VIII when it comes out next year on 3DS?
Probably I would need to buy another 3DS.
Oh.
Because mine had been kind of gathering dust, so I sold it.
I mean, you don't. You certainly don't have to. It maybe it'll come to as a PS2 to PS4 classic anyway.
Yeah, a friend was really wanting to buy like the latest Pokemon, and I was like, well, my 3DS is kind of gathering dust right now. I'll sell it to you, and you get something out of it, I get something out of it, and I've been wanting to upgrade to the new 3DS XL anyway, so I was like, I'll use part of this money to like go towards that purchase.
Business sense, very savvy, excellent.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, so what? So going from Dragon Quest, how did you get into like where did you go from Dragon Quest VIII?
Just trying out different other RPGs. I would go. Even though I'd missed some RPGs on the previous consoles, they were still kind of lying around the house, and then I'd try Tales of Symphonia on GameCube, and that one, like, I just stayed up all hours of the night playing that. The other Tales games in general, like, that's what got me into those too, and that's I started playing the Final Fantasies, but I didn't get very far because even though like mechanically they're really similar, the graphics, I know that they're blowing people away with like, oh, how realistic they are, but I'm much more interested in like I don't know if more cartoony style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like Tales of Symphonia.
Yeah, like an art style.
You know, Dragon Quest, something a bit more, something more anime inspired.
Interesting, because
stylized.
Yeah, it's interesting that it just, again, from my conversation last night, one of the people talking about Final Fantasy 7 and 8, they were talking about how like one of their friends loved the anime look of those games, and then when Final Fantasy 9 came around, they were very turned off by it because it didn't have like the what they were looking for in that art style. So hearing that it wasn't anime enough for you is just a fun little juxtaposition in the conversations I've been having around Final Fantasy these days. Yeah, I mean, it definitely had. It was for the time, they certainly weren't like in the same kind of Dragon Ball Z kind of range of things. So totally makes sense that you would get more drawn to a Dragon Quest or a Tales than the more attempting to be as graphically like connected to like our real world and having more realistic cars and motorcycles and stuff driving around in those games. It would make sense that like that might not be what you were looking for as a comparison. Cool. So you mentioned you kind of got into Beyond, and that's when you started really kind of investing more into kind of keeping an eye on like the industry and news and whatnot. What was that kind of transition like for you?
I just like fell in love with the personalities. I don't even remember when I started when I started visiting IGN, but there must have been like a thumbnail or something that just got me to click on like, we're talking about this thing today. And so I mean I know how I started getting into Beyond, because I remember the very first episode I listened to was episode 35, and they ended the episode with a song, because that was the thing they did. They would just sing, and it was just the silliest thing I'd ever heard. Like, it wasn't too serious. They're talking about industry news, but they're also being just a bunch of goofballs, and it did remind me of, well, I mean, actually reminding isn't even really the word, because it was what I was missing, in that I had friends that played games, but none of them like took it that serious. And by now, in that point, I was starting to take things serious, and so I was like, oh, this is what I'm missing. I'm missing conversations about games, about the industry and things that I never even thought about. And so I just started following all the other podcasts, and because it is a chance to hear voices talk about something I care about. Whereas, I do have friends, but and we have common interests, but none of them are ever gaming really, or that seriously gaming.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of the kind of behind the scenes vibe of things. Like they know things about how the games are being made, or at least they cover the news that's coming out about the game, so they can kind of speak to it in that regard. So yeah, it seems like maybe a natural transition point, or a natural kind of foot in the door for you in kind of exposing yourself to that kind of stuff. So where do we go from there? Does that just kind of hold you off and then you just eventually start going to some of these events and going to like the Beyond House Party thing that we went to? Like, what were you doing? Let's get me from when you started listening to Beyond to when I would have met you.
Man, it's such a blur, and it's such actually a big gap, because like I said, that's episode 35, and it wasn't until way past episode 300 that I went to my first event. Mm-hmm. Like, actually, yeah, it was episode 400 was the house party, right? Yeah, so like, I mean, the whole time between that, it was just me just continuing to listen to these shows and then become more invested in these games that I'm playing, because I hear about because before I was just kind of guessing based off cover art, but now I have this new connection of like, oh, this is a thing that Ryan is talking about or Greg is talking about, and I guess I'm just like during that time I'm not really getting involved. I'm a lurker. I'm not really writing into the show or anything like that, but I'm just becoming a fan of these personalities and following the trajectory of their careers as they come and go, and Beyond just takes off, and Greg starts. They haven't launched Kind of Funny yet, but they're moving on to they're starting to do this whole Game Over Greggy YouTube show thing. I'm kind of getting lost in thought. That's the kind of the thing that I do by accident. I easily like lose my train of thought.
That's good.
Or sidetracked. So let me try to like get my bearings.
It's to put you at ease. This is a conversational podcast.
Okay. Oh man, that's a throwback. Throwback, kids. Ask your parents. But I mean, and so following this community, I guess what like inspired me to. The question was like, what have I been doing that time that leading from my first introduction to the time I met you? Like, it's just that was basically it. Was like, I guess there's not much to say about it other than I was like a lurker. I guess like I was a fan, but I didn't really know of ways to become more involved. The first hint of that was Beyond 300 when they invited everybody over. But by then, like even though I'm probably having a job and stuff, I didn't think it realistic to fly out there and go be a part of the physical community.
Yeah. Was the Beyond 400, was that kind of your first video in terms of like recap video that you'd done? Was that was the first event and first video in that regard? Or had you done other?
No, like yeah. Yes and no.
Because I know that certainly wasn't the first Pixel Brave video. Pixel Brave, you were doing Pixel like conversations, right? That's your earlier videos are that kind of stuff where you were animating in pixel art.
Yeah, I was doing movie reviews in pixel art, and hold on, I'm gonna burp real quick.
Okay.
Excuse me. Edit that out.
No, that's staying in.
We'll see.
Your burp is staying in.
Okay, so my first taste of like doing IGN related videos was, I'm trying to remember actually why I was in California, but something took me out there for, why was I out there? I was in California, as I try to remember why I was out there, I was in San Francisco for a weekend, and I happened to email Ryan. I feel really embarrassed that I listen to his show all the time, but as we're talking, why can't I remember Ryan Clements?
I was going to say it's either Clements or McCaffrey.
Yeah. No. I on a whim, I just emailed Ryan and just said, hey, I'm a big fan of Beyond and everything you do. You're my favorite editor, and can I buy you a drink or something while I'm down there? For this reason that I still can't remember why I'm in San Francisco all the way from Austin. And he says, yeah, sure, why not? Stay in touch, and I'll let you know what I'm doing this weekend. And he reaches out again and says, oh, like we're having one of our employees is like having a going away party because they're moving to another company or something. So yeah, I'll be there, and you're more than welcome to stop by the bar. And like, so yeah, I had my camera with me by then, and so I went and did a little recap of this going away party. And Greg was there, Tyroot was there. I still hadn't known all the faces to names. Brian Miggles was there, but he just said, hi, my name's Brian. And I was like, oh, Altano? And he's like, no, not Altano. I'm Brian Miggles. I'm the other Brian. And so I'm learning to put faces to name. Fran is there, and just and people thought I kind of worked for them. They're like, oh, you're here with us and you have a camera. Like, what department are you in? I'm not familiar with you. And I was just like, no, I'm just visiting. They were nice enough to invite me. And yeah, I just did a highlight reel of that whole thing and posted that. But not only that, but Fran also, as I ran into him, he said, hey, have you seen The Office yet? Because I'm just making my way around and doing small talking. And I'm like, no, like, you guys only do that on First Fridays, and tomorrow's not a First Friday. He's like, well, I don't care. Come by and see it. And, you're here all the way from Texas. You got to come see it. So I was like, okay, by the way, you've had a few drinks. Do you mind making a small message on my camera confirming that I'm allowed to come see you guys tomorrow, and that way I can show it to the front desk. And he's like, okay, yeah. And so I point the camera, and he's like, so Patty, or whatever her name is, like, this is Christian, let him in, he's gonna come check out the office. And so yeah, the very next day, only hours before my flight, I am shown around and met many faces that I didn't realize I would be fans of until much later. Not knowing who they were, I met Ryan Scott, I met Scott Bromley, and Anthony Gallegos all in that one trip. Not knowing who they were or what they did until my flight back, and then realized, oh, these guys are part of a show called The Comedy Button. No, the Briefings, excuse me, because it wasn't Comedy Button yet. But in that trip there to the office, I did a recap, and people were liking the videos these two videos, the first, the party, and second, the quick IGN tour that I had. And I think that was the first taste of like, you know what, I wish I could do more of this, but I don't know. Well, who knows when more opportunities will come by. And I think that feeling just quickly came back again when, as I'm still part of the community, still a fan, but not doing videos, when I see the opportunity to go to the house party, I'm like, oh, this is my chance to go kind of do that again. Like part 2, go back, and now that I know a bit more about filming and editing, I can put out even better video. Because I have this weird mindset of like, if I don't like the way someone else does a thing, I mean, this is kind of like arrogant of me, but like then I'm like, I gotta do it, because like, and it's not necessarily because I'm better, but it's because I feel like I owe it to other people. And so I might get in trouble for saying this, because I know how much, care and work people put into the things they do. But during the first Kind of Funny, for KFL Live too, or the first Kind of Funny Live, they did the fan submitted montage, where they had to set up their own cameras, and they were also taking submissions for people if they had cell phones. And I was like, oh, that's such a cool idea. I can't go to Kind of Funny Live 1, so I'm glad that I'm gonna watch that. And even though it was cool to watch, I was just like, the producer in me was like kind of cringing at like these angles and whatnot. And so I knew, I was like, this is why I can't stand by anymore. I gotta start doing videos at these events, because no one else is gonna do them, or they're not gonna do them the way I want to do it, as arrogant as that of a thought is to have. And so when the house party came around, I'm like, that's gonna be dope. That's gonna be such a cool thing. Unlocked. I became a really big fan of Unlocked, even though I've never owned an Xbox. And Beyond is there, and everyone's gonna be there. So I gotta go, and I gotta go make these videos, and especially because I've been in that shoe of only having the screen to experience this event. And it's like I said, I feel in trouble saying it, but like that video wasn't what I kind of wanted. And so I'm sure there are other people out there that feel that way. So I'm going to do my best to provide something that they would kind of want. And that ended up kind of like happening. Like people really liked the video that I put out.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm totally going to, because Wes Bray, I believe, was the one who put the Kind of Funny, the first Kind of Funny Live, like fan submission video together. He's, I think, one of them. So I'm totally going to, like, he's one of the Facebook admins. So I'm going to totally hop into the Facebook chat after this, and he'll just be waking up because he's in the UK. So I'm going to totally tell him that you're calling him out as that video that sucked.
I mean, probably lots of people think, like, as many people as, I mean, even though some people vocally like mine, I'm sure there's people that also think like, well, it should be longer, it should have more of this or that. So I mean,
did you see
was just a thing we all kind of take advantage of.
Yeah, did you see the unedited version of that? Because they definitely like cut it down to the 3-minute or whatever version that they put together, but they did take like everybody's submissions and kind of just parse them all together, because it was like they were like, yeah, just give us like 30 seconds, and then people did not abide by 30 seconds. So there is a long, like an extended cut of that video somewhere out there. I don't even know where at this point, but yeah, that was a fun thing. And then I got annoyed by that video because in the secret group that was created to like collect all those submissions, so nobody knew, so the guys didn't know about it. They were like, only do this if you're not going to be there, because we like, if you're going to be there, you're going to get to see them, you're going to get to tell them how great they are. So don't participate in this if you're already going to be there. And there were so many people that totally double dipped and were in that video and sitting right next to me, and I was like, what the hell, guys? What the hell? Cameron Abbott, calling you out, buddy. You were one of them. I know you were. my roommate there. I was like, what is he doing up on the screen? Well, that's awesome. So yeah, and I'm super glad that like that's an awesome like intro to IGN, like getting to see the tour and meet everybody just out at a bar one night. That's a great story, and getting to like meet all of the comedy button people before you like recognize they were the comedy button people. Yeah, that's I mean, I know this is like the gaming history, but that's close enough. That's gaming adjacent, so that's really cool, and I'm super glad that you made the jump to do that and go get out there to the house party and do that video, which then like I was like, oh, that's really cool, and then come again to PSX that year, and do the same, do and just keep doing it whenever. It's always a joy like getting to see you and like you the thing I'm saddest about is that you're not in the videos more. That you don't get a little bit of yourself in there as much. Like it's like a hint every now and then, but you're like one of the unsung heroes in the communities by putting those videos out there, and so many people like don't even know who you are, and it's I'm like, oh, it's like I wish you had a little bit more recognition, but I get that you're like a behind the scenes kind of. You are the producer, the director, as you're kind of talking about it. So it makes sense. You're not the star. You don't need to be the face of the video.
No, I feel like I've got all the like in camera stuff out of my system in high school, because I was making, like, we'll probably touch on this in the filmmaking side, but just a taste of what's gonna come. Like, you know, we didn't have actors, so we just had to take turns being in front of the camera, and I just cringed at like my own voice and the things that I said and the things that I acted. So, you know, that just carried on, and I just, after high school, I'm like, well, nope, never again. I'm just gonna stay behind because this is where I'm safe and I have full control. You know, if I could remotely control something filming me, then I totally would. But because I know that footage of me is probably someone else's hands on the controls, I'm gonna be constantly like self-conscious. But like, are they framing me okay? Is the white balance okay? Like, they have me in focus. So like, I just rather stay behind the camera.
Well, now I just kind of want to have like a drone flying over us at like PSX in a few weeks, and just kind of like hovering over, recording our conversations and our interactions and stuff. So I can edit it together and be like, yeah, deal with it, Christian. What are you gonna do? And I've got crappy editing skills, so you're gonna really cringe at whatever I put out there.
Oh man,
that's awesome. I'm
but your heart is gonna. Your heart will be in it though, so that'll make it work.
Yeah, I'm super glad that you found a way to kind of blend those two passions in that regard. Find like taking that love of the gaming leading you into these personalities, and then getting to spend the time with the personalities, and then getting to do these videos with and for the personalities to a certain extent, and the community surrounding those events and the personalities and all that stuff, kind of blending your love of that with your love of filmmaking, which we'll get into in a little bit. It seems like a just a solid blend for a lot of the things that kind of you love all in one place.
Yeah, it's really fulfilling, and I don't do it exclusively for the Kind of Funny guys or the IGN community. It's just a thing I found. Like, my first time trying it was, with IGN, but now that I knew that I liked it, I did it all the time here locally in Austin. Like, if there's a really small game convention, or like, I went to PAX South the first year that it was there, but I didn't meet any IGN or Kind of Funny people. I just was doing recaps of those things just because they were fun, not because Greg was there or anyone else noteworthy was there. It's just this thing that I liked doing because it uses a thing I love, such as filmmaking, to capture another thing that I love, which is, gaming communities.
Yeah, definitely. And then, yes, come the second year of PAX South, that's when the celebrities showed up, like Trevor from TrevorTrove.com.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, that's when I feel like that's when I met you, right? Like, more formally, like, we weren't just passing each other. That's when
PSX was the first one, really. Like, I remember like you sitting across and doing kind of filming and being in that kind of group where we went to like 21st Amendment, and then we went to we went back to like the hotel, and we're just kind of
that's right
and, like, okay. Walking out. Like, there's in that video, there's like me being like very visual and like that's the opening shot. I'm like, oh yay, I'm neat. I'm a celebrity in Pixel Brave videos now. So yeah, that was the first one.
Up, your card from you.
Oh yeah. Hey, there's me.
yeah, you gave me your card, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. He does pixel art, and he's a cool guy, and like, yeah, like everything just kind of blurs as I remember it, because like they all feel very, when you see the same faces, and it's all gaming, like, yeah, sometimes you forget like when it happens, because it hit one right after the other. PSX then packs
yeah
up.
Oh definitely. Yeah, that's awesome, and I like one of my favorite things about your videos is that they're just great to go back to, and I will, like, I'll every few weeks I'll just go back and watch those recap videos and remember the conversations that we had, or remember kind of being around those people, and like that's extra special for me because I was there, but I do love that, like, even if people weren't there, they do get to kind of live vicariously through us a little bit in what you've kind of put out there and left for us and left for the future of us. So thank you, like, for doing that, and yeah, that's great. Any last moments that you kind of want to touch on in like the gaming history of Christian before we dive into your favorite game?
I mean, I can use that to kind of segue into like my favorite game, in that eventually, as we mentioned, like I have a particular taste for like cartoony art style, and so the art style of Kingdom Hearts was something that eventually grabbed me. I'd always seen it but never picked it up, but as more and more people started talking about it at school and like bringing their walkthroughs, and I get to see the arts as they flip through it, I'm like, I gotta play this game because it just looks really beautiful. And I just kind of marathoned my way through it, playing the first one, and then I think my sister had a Game Boy SP, and so I played Chain of Memories and then played Kingdom Hearts 2. Like, that was Kingdom Hearts 2, the art style, that was what kind of got me into running revisit the first one. That was the walkthrough that people were carrying around in school with them, was the Kingdom Hearts 2 guide. And I became like, oh, that's my number one franchise, and which, like, so I buy consoles to play the latest entry